Meet Dr. Ben Carson, former Director of Pediatric Neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital, young Earth creationist, and, well, let's just say he's several sandwiches short of a picnic. And unlike Kent Hovind, who we saw in Part 1, Dr. Carson is a real doctor. It's just so bizarre how someone with a medical degree can say things that make absolutely no scientific sense.
Now, this whole creation evolution controversy has been raging on really since the beginning, because what is Satan's plan? To get rid of God, to disparage God, to mischaracterize God.
How is it that in 2015, highly educated individuals like Ben Carson can still talk about Satan like he's a real thing? If I was Satan, I'd probably pretend to be a devout follower of my enemy, to learn their motivations and learn how to control the masses by appealing to their fear of mortality. That is ultimately what drives people to religion in the first place. It's also incredible the kinds of things Dr. Carson says when he's supposed to have an extensive knowledge of biology, physiology, and anatomy. How can somebody go through decades of education, training, and professional experience and still say crazy things like...
What I said is that people who believe in God and who believe in the Bible can very easily explain from where they derive their ethical philosophies. People who believe in survival of the fittest might have a more difficult time doing that. Because when you believe in survival of the fittest, and you and another person are the only person there, and you're hungry, and you kill them and eat them, well, that's survival of the fittest. That's not necessarily the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, tell it like it is, Benny. Survival of the fittest says murder and cannibalism is okay, just like banks say it's okay to commit armed robbery. Survival of the fittest, or as it's now known, natural selection, explains how species with a biological advantage in an environment will survive and propagate better in that environment. For instance, orangutans have longer and stronger arms because they spend a lot of time swinging through trees. Humans have legs that are more suited to walking on the ground, which can be explained because humans don't regularly swing through the trees, as our most natural form of transport are our legs, and legs aren't a particular requirement for activities that require upper body strength. If we did swing through the trees on a regular basis, our arms would need the strength to support ourselves. If you were to put humans and orangutans into an environment with lots of trees, orangutans would have the physical advantage because their arms are better suited to supporting them on the branches than our arms are. If you check out this simulator, there's a link in the description, you can see how alleles can change depending on their frequency, and you can change the fitness of the alleles to be more suitable to the type of environment you're envisioning. Alleles that are more frequent are more likely to be fixed to particular populations, and the opposite is true for alleles that are low in frequency. It's these alleles that determine the genotype, and it's the genotype that determines the phenotype. That's the physical expression of a gene. These types of models are used by pretty much everybody in genetics to determine how species change over successive generations, and they are crucial to our understanding of inheritance and variation in species that results from natural selection.
Political correctness and evolution is part of scientific political correctness. You're not supposed to believe in God.
That's right, Ben. You aren't supposed to believe in God, or anything else for which there is no evidence whatsoever. Or rather, you can believe in a God if you want, but if you want others to take it seriously, you have to provide evidence for your claims, and you need to be willing to let people reject your claims if they are not consistent with reality. The reason peer review isn't something welcomed by creationists is because they know they don't have sufficient data to provide that the universe or any form of life was designed by a sentient being, and they know they'd be laughed off the stage of any academic conference if they tried to argue with the "you just have to have faith" argument. The way things work is you provide the evidence for your claims, and if it can withstand harsh scrutiny from anyone, whether they be people with postgraduate research degrees or medical degrees, or simply a YouTuber with an inclination towards exposing utter nonsense wherever it comes forward, then people can study more about what you proposed, and if their studies and experiments are consistent with yours, then it is accepted into the scientific arena as a heavyweight that has survived all forms of criticism and still remains standing. It shouldn't matter that Ben Carson was a doctor. It shouldn't matter how popular he is among the Republican fan base. All that matters is the validity of his claims, and given his utter lack of knowledge of the most basic aspects of evolutionary theory, it should serve as prime evidence that Ben Carson is talking crap.